Do any of you know what this is? Is this a piece of art deco? Nope. Is this a kid's toy? Nope. Is this a new invention? In a way you can say that, but that's not quite what it is. It's a Lego coffee mug with pieces of Lego. See? That's the inside of the coffee mug, and it's got some water drippings on it because I washed it out in the kitchen sink really good before I did this video. It's pouring in the coffee mug right now. This is Pete's medium rate, or medium blend. No, the packaging is a bit crinkled. It's organic Alameda morning blend with coca, dulce de leche or leche aromatic. Yes. It's all been stirred with the half and half coffee cream and a packet of stevia sweetener. Wow. Look at this coffee mug. Oh, I gotta turn it around. There. Look at this coffee mug. That is really, really, really one of a kind. How I obtained this coffee mug was the seller is probably someone who is new to selling on eBay. He's a young man, based on the photograph of him, and he lives in. Hold on. He lives in Rootstown, Ohio. Rootstown, Ohio. Now his full name, I'm not going to say that because I could get heavily censured by not only eBay but by YouTube as well. But I really like this thing because the cost of this item, with postage, because the buy it now price was about $1.23, $1.25, and the postage with this item. Hold on, I'm going to go do a check. Okay, the cost of this item with shipping of $8, which the shipping charge was $8.98 approximately, and sales tax and some other taxing fee or whatever, was $11.72. Yep, $11.72. That is a really good deal to get something that looks like this. Back here, let me hold it like this so you can get a better view of it. It looks kind of like this. See? One of a kind, one of a kind. And what I will accomplish before I upload this video and complete this video within, the whole vlog within itself, is I will have to finish a video about Cagney and Lacey. The first part of the video is about the pilot movie that starred Tyne Daly and Loretta Swit, and the guy who played Harvey Lacey Sr., the dad, was a guy, just a sec. Okay, I just did verification. It was an actor named Ronald Hunter. And the man who was the ultimate star, who really played the part, who made you actually, I mean, he played it so good, he made you think he was actually the parents of the two boys, was John Carlem, K-A-R-L-E-M. Because John Carlem is, quite unfortunately, deceased. He lived to be fairly old. He lived, in fact, I think it was a little more than fairly old. It was more like pretty close to pretty old. He was 86 years old when he passed away a few years ago. Now, when actor John Carlem passed away, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't. It was probably at least 4 to 5 years ago by now. You know, meaning 4 to 5 years before the year 2025, the present date. So, what I will have, or what will be the other purpose of this vlog, I haven't decided yet. But when I do, I'll be talking all about it. So please, please stay tuned. Thank you. Hi, YouTube fans. This is Matt. Here's about a couple of days later, and as you guys already know, this is post April 6th YouTube channel. Well, what this vlog is going to be about isn't about the Lego coffee mug that I got. And it's not about me eating spaghetti, even though I showed that really quickly. Because after I had that, concerning the taste of the spaghetti, it was really delicious. I mean, when I cooked it and I had one plate one day, and then the next day after work I had another, it was really delicious. It was good. Marinara sauce that was tomato basil by Whole Foods. It was organic, and I loved every single bite of it. It really turned out pretty good. But the sole purpose of this vlog within itself, and the main purpose of this vlog, is about that. It's about this. Yes. Here is another unfinished story idea about a guy who becomes an actor. And it's not like the guy that I talked about before, who was from Iowa. No, Ames, Iowa. It is. This guy is from Goodland, Kansas. And his name, I mean, the way his parents named him, they might have known in the back of their mind that he was going to become an actor because of his full name. Oscar Douglas Bannock, and that is spelled B-A-N-N-O-C-K. Actually, it may be pronounced Bannock, or Bannock, or Bannock, because what Bannock means here in Denver, Colorado, and in Inglewood, because this side over here would be Denver, and that would be Inglewood. It's a really long street that's it's huger than this. I mean, it's quite easily 10 miles from one end to the other. And it's on the west. It's on the west side of the Denver metro area instead of the east side. Bannock, or well, I better not say the exact numbers verbatim, but the 700 block of North Bannock was a lifesaver for me. I'm referring to Denver Health Medical Center, because that was the place where I had the traumatic brain injury treatment that took over 11 weeks to complete. Because they just didn't do 3 or 4 brain surgeries and then they kept me there for 3 or 4 days and then I let me out. No. When I got my head bashed in as bad as I did, you're there for at least 8 weeks. At least. I was there for 11 weeks. Now, let's get back to the story. Why don't I go ahead and get started reading the story idea and what happens. A man born in Goodland, Kansas, as I've already said, on March 4th, 1980. Again, his birthday was March 4th, 1980. Started out as an ordinary man. His parents, Dennis Bannock, age 28, born in 1952, because his father was 28 years old when he was born, but nowadays, the dad, Dennis Bannock, would be 52 years old, or no, excuse me, 73 years old. Almost said 52, it's 73 years old. And his mother was Joanne, not Taggart Bannock, age 25. That's the age his mother was when he was born. 2 months before the baby was born, Joanne and Dennis, they decided to name him Oscar Douglas Bannock. Or if the baby turned out to be a girl, would be named Kate Myra Bannock. Dennis was a operations manager for United Parcel Service, or commonly known as UPS. And Joanne worked as a teacher's aide at a junior high school in Goodland 3 days a week. She worked part-time pretty much. The Bannocks had a nice 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house located on Syracuse Avenue near West 15th and 14th Streets, because figuratively speaking, 14th would be about here and 15th would be right here, or vice versa. Okay, so anyways, at 2:52 p.m. on March 4th, Oscar Douglas Bannock was born into this world and was fairly large. He weighed 8 pounds, 8 ounces. And he was 15 inches tall. He was fairly big, weight-wise and height-wise for a baby. On one day of April 5th, 1988, Oscar was taking a bath at 2 p.m. And then it began to rain quite heavily. And the thunderbolts were so loud, it struck the house. Well, actually what it did was, it barely missed the house, but it hit the yard. And it was so close to the bathroom, because his bathroom would be over here instead of over here. It'd be on this side of the house instead of that side of the house. So it struck the house and caused Oscar to faint and succumb to a serious state of shock syndrome. And then he sunk below the waterline in the bathtub, and then he drowned, causing him to suffocate and his heart to stop. His mother came speeding home from the grocery store, and 6 minutes later she rushed into the bathroom. Because see, let me stop for a minute. What was really going on was the mother had just finished grocery shopping, and when it started coming down heavy, her instincts told her that her son was taking a bath, and that she was going to be home to tell him, don't do this, don't do that, don't go outside, don't get near this, don't get near that. You know, because mothers have to do that. Okay, let me get back to where I was. Okay, and 6 minutes later, she rushed into the bathroom, and with her, and she truly takes off her coat and pulls him out of the bathtub, and she gently places him laying down on the floor and presses his stomach to get all of the water out. Because she pressed on this a certain way, the stomach. Because, she was trained in, for first aid for stuff like this before she became a teacher's aide in case the kids got really sick. And she was also trained on how to do C.P.R. And after the water was released, even though I don't state that that's what this would be about, and she alternates between mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and chest compression. Within 3 minutes, he is suddenly heavily gasping for air and opens his eyes wide. Like this. And he's probably shaking. Like that. And he gestures both hands because she was coming out like this because he wanted to be held because he was so nice to see his mother, or so glad to see his mother. And he says, "Mama, Mama, I came forth from a tunnel of light." And the both of them cry profusely and are crying hard and giving each other the most unconditional love. No, wait a minute, let me say that again. And giving each other the most unconditional mother and son love. And then after holding each other for 5 minutes, the front door of the house loudly opens up. And then you hear Dennis, the father, and a bold leader run over to the bathroom wearing a quite spiffy, new, light brown camel hair trench coat. Because he was just giving that at a party. And he was sent home a little bit earlier because of a celebration they were having because of, how good of a operations manager he was. Okay, so it says, camel hair trench coat he was given as a gift. And he shouts, "What the hell is going on here? Why are you two embracing each other like this?" Then Joan says gently, "Dennis, I'm telling you the truth. A massive bolt of lightning struck the house. Oscar fainted in the bathtub. He was dead 5 minutes. I came rushing home to the house and pulled him out of the bathtub. And I pumped his stomach to purge all the water. And he was not breathing, and his lips turned dark blue." And then before Joanne says another word, she sees Dennis put both his hands over his eyes because he puts his hands over his eyes like this, and he removes his glasses, and he starts going, "Oh no, I almost lost my son. No, oh my God, oh my God." And then the three of them embraced each other after the little boy wraps a towel around his waist and covers up his privates. is at least partially dressed. And then after they all three get into a group hug, and he's gently patted on his head by his father and by his mother, he finishes drying off and he gets dressed. And they shut the bathroom door, and the husband and wife talk it over. And he sits on the living room couch, and he's just saying, "Thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord, I'm still alive." And the dad says very gently, he says, "Dennis, I know you love the Lord and you appreciate Him for what He just did for you, but I have to tell you something." He says, "What?" And he goes kind of gently like this. He says, "Look at me. What I'm going to have to ask you to do, we have to do it by law. I'm going to have you put your shoes on, and I have to take you to an emergency room and have you checked out." And he's just like, and he's like, no, I don't want to go to this hospital. He says, Dennis. Or no, I'm sorry. He says, Oscar. Oh, goodness. I might have used his, I might have gotten the names mixed up. But, he's saying, Oscar, look. We have to do this by law. Because if I don't do this, I could be under investigation by social services. You have to get checked out by the emergency room doctors. You're getting around pretty good. I think there's a very good possibility you won't have to go to the hospital. It's like, well, all right, I'm alive. I guess we have to do it. All right, I'll go get my shoes on. He gets his shoes on and he looks around the room, and she says, and Dennis says, Oscar, come on, let's go. You're gonna see that room again. Come on, let's go. And they get into the family car. That's probably something like a I think it'll be a Fairmount station wagon, or a Honda station wagon, or a Chevrolet Caprice station wagon, something like that, or an Oldsmobile station wagon. You know what I mean? In 1988, those were the days when you could find station wagons, but now I really don't think they make them anymore. SUVs, yes, but station wagons, no. You can find plenty of good. You can find lots of used ones that are, mint condition, and then you're going to find some other ones that are in pretty sad shape and need to be totally restored before they can be driven again, so they don't look like a wretched eyesore. Okay, so what happens is after the resuscitation is done, and okay, so what happens is they drive to the hospital. The distance of the hospital from the house, and this is Goodland, Kansas. The best guess I can make is it's 3.8 to 4.9 miles from the house. They go in, and it's, I would assume that Goodland has two different hospitals, or at least, gut instincts tell me that. The hospital they go to is dead slow, which is to their benefit. They go to the admittance area, and then a staff person, whether it be clinical or whatever their official title would be, says, okay, come on back, let's go to the emergency room. And then what happens is they sit in the waiting area for about 4 minutes while the dad fills out the paperwork. And after 4 minutes, a really nice nurse lady says, okay, Oscar. Your full name is Oscar Douglas Bannock, born March 4th, 1980, correct? Is that correct information? And he says, yes. He says, all right, come on back. So the area that they would go to, because I have experience, because I admitted myself to an emergency room 15 years ago because of hypertension. I believe it would be a triage or pre-admittance area. They take his temperature, they take his blood pressure, and she also says, okay, open wide, and she puts a flashlight in there, and she says, and she checks his ears, and she says, okay, your blood pressure is just a little bit high, but, and she's like, and he's worried, like, oh my God, I have heart disease, I have heart disease. She goes, and she says, Oscar, after what you've been through, it's normal, okay? Don't get upset. You know, try to take some deep breaths and try to close your eyes and relax. I need you to follow me to the private emergency room. And she's like, but I don't want to, and she says, Oscar, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all by yourself. In fact, I can't let you watch television. What I can do is there's a nice little radio next on the nightstand near the bed that you're going to have to lay on, and you can change channels and listen to some music as long as you keep the volume low. So he goes in there, and he flips through the channels, and the rock music, he just wasn't in the mood for it after what happened. But what he did do was there was some jazz music going. He playing that, he's liking it. I mean, he's like, gosh, why do I like it so much when I usually don't like jazz music? You know, it was easy listening jazz, not that, you know, that upbeat bebop jazz or modern jazz. So then what happens is the doctor asks a bunch of questions. He takes his blood pressure 3 times, and even though it makes him cry, he has to draw some blood. And then he asks him to go into the area where the laboratory restroom is, and he has him pee in a cup. And he also asks him to drop his pants. And he doesn't do a butt probe, but he has to look at his buttocks to see if there's, like, you know, spider veins or whatnot. He says, okay, good, your rear end is good, and your legs are good. And he asks some more personal questions. And then he says, okay, your blood pressure is a little high, but I can tell by your cognitive abilities and your coherency, you've really healed quite well from what happened. But before I can release you, we need to run some lab tests. So that's going to take another 30 minutes. And he's just in there, and he's just like, and at first he's like, oh, I want to go to the steakhouse, oh, I want to go to the steakhouse, oh, I want to go to the steakhouse. And then about 5 minutes before the doctor comes back, he says, you know what? He's not speaking to himself, but he's thinking this in his mind. He thought, you know what? Me being in this hospital for 3 or 4 days, that ain't the worst thing that could happen. I'm alive. Once I get released from the hospital, I get to go back to my favorite house, and I get to go back to school, and even though there's one kid who dislikes me, he doesn't say much to me, he just ignores me. He doesn't try to pick fights, he doesn't really pick on me. And he's thinking, you know, all is well. I'm alive. So after 5 minutes, he talks about some things, and he says this. He says, okay, before I release you, here's what health condition you do have. It's hypertension. And he's like, what? What? I have a bad heart. He says, Oscar, just calm down. High blood pressure is normal in a lot of people. And then he says, wait a minute. He says, can I have you lift up your shirt, please? And he does. And he lifts it up. And he listens to his heart, and he feels here. He feels around here. Like this. About like that. And he said, yeah, he says, your heartbeat is pretty consistent, it's not erratic. And he said, what we'll do is, normally we would do a prescription, but because of your circumstances, we're going to give you 10 tablets of, really don't like to say this on a YouTube vlog, but I guess I can go ahead and say it. Zestril 10 milligrams. Yeah. And then he says, okay, what I need to do is for you to stay here just a little bit longer, and I need to talk some things over with your parents. And then after that, I'll have you go to the I think what they would call the release discharge sector or whatever. And then what happens is the parents come in and they says, okay, follow us to the discharge sector, and I'm going to have to sign a few things, and you're going to get blood pressure medication. And he says, then what? And then he says, okay, Dad, then what? He says, do you want to go home and have a tuna sandwich? He says, no, Dad, no, please. Come on. He says, I knew you wouldn't. He says, you're going to get to go to the steakhouse, and you're going to have some nice dessert. And he's like, yeah! And he shakes his dad's hand, and he hugs his mom. And then they go to the steakhouse at about, I'm trying to think here. It's approximately somewhere between 10 minutes till 4 and 20 minutes after 4 p.m. Somewhere in that ballpark. After thinking about this carefully. And he gets to eat. Him and his dad get one of the big ones. Not one of those 70-ounce ones, but it's like 24-ounce steak. They divide it up. He gets a baked potato, and he also gets to eat some. I think it's one of those little baked things where it's apples and, I want to say apple and cobbles, or apple and something. I can't think of the name of it though. I mean, you bake it instead of just cooking it. You bake it in an oven. It's sort of like a little pie. I think it's like cobbled apples or something like that. And then he gets to have his favorite. Double dark chocolate cake with a small scoop of Napoleon ice cream. He loves that. And then what he does is on the way home, they stop at a, it's not literally five and dime, but it's something, it's like something Kansas or something wheat ridge or wheat something discount store, and he gets a deck of cards that have Knight Rider. They're only going to cost $3. You know, the Knight Rider character, the Knight Rider card. Yeah. And they go home, they watch a little bit of TV, and he says to his dad says to Dennis, the dad says to Oscar, he says, I know it's mandatory that you go to bed at 9 o'clock, but just this once, here's what I'm going to do for you. Or let you do. This is what's up. He says, because you know, he's got cable TV. He considered it a nice discount price because he works for UPS. He says, why don't we go to the cartoon channel, and you get to watch that from 9 to 10, but at 10 o'clock sharp, you got to get undressed, you got to get in your jammies and go to sleep. No, don't argue with me about that, because if you do, you're going to be grounded tomorrow. You understand that? Yeah, I'll go, when you tell me right to go to bed, I'll go right to bed and get my jammies right away. I won't argue things. I know you will, but I just want to make sure, just because you're in such a happy mood, that you follow the rules, okay? Okay, Dad. So they watch, one half is Scooby-Doo from 9 to 9:30, and then from 9:30 to 10 o'clock is Looney Tunes Classic. He watches 3 different Looney Tunes cartoons. 2 with Bugs Bunny and 1 with mostly Daffy Duck against Bugs Bunny, something like that. Or no, Porky Pig. You know, like a Porky Pig and like Daffy Duck. Yeah, that one. You know, one of the really old ones. And at 10 o'clock sharp, he goes into bed. He goes to sleep. He wakes up the next day, and Mom makes some over easy eggs and some Jimmy Dean grilled sausage and a slice and some French toast for him. Yeah. Okay, so he continues to go to school. You know, public elementary school and junior high. And then in May of 1996, he becomes a high school graduate. And here's a job that he has had since he was about 3 months away from turning 15 years old. He's working at A-List video store. Now, did they have an A-List video store in Goodland, Kansas? I don't think so, which is why I'm calling it A-List. And by the time he graduates, he is such a really good worker. And he is really good at telling people not to do things and stuff like that, that he becomes a shift leader. So, he works for A-List continues to work for A-List for quite some time. Okay, so by March of 2007, things go from here as far as ranking the rank of management authority to here. And here's what it's about. Had to pet my kitty. In fact, here I'll point her out. Hi, kitty. What are you getting into? Huh? What are you looking for? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're on YouTube. Did you know that? Yeah, you're on YouTube. Okay, so what the ranking means is this. By March 12th of 2007, Oscar becomes general manager of 2 stores. Because see, there's 2 A-list video rental stores. And not only is he general manager, he is also co-owner. Yes. Because you see, the man who owns it is getting old. And he has been legally, and all the things you're supposed to, all the procedural things you got to go through, so he's legally certified as co-owner. And what he also does in his spare time is he takes a correspondence course online through through an acting school. It's not LA Film School, but it's one of the things that has a lot of credibility. You know, he does online as a correspondence course thing. So, here's what happens. Okay, so 19 months later, I had to pause and very carefully figure this one out, so I'm not sounding like a disorganized and disinteresting, or not interesting at all. Okay, Oscar is tired of living in Goodland, Kansas by October 27, 2008. He is deeply concerned that the A-list DVDs and electronics will go broke. Because you see, this was around the time that the economy went like that. I mean, it was hitting, it was falling down hard. I mean, even President George W. Bush was saying we're entering a great recession. And there was a major stock market crash in October. I mean, things were not going good at all. So shortly after October 27th, 2008, he resigns from the company because he already had a job lined up. His dear old dad, who was probably retired by then, yeah, he was. His dad was retired. Pulled some strings, and he got hired as a UPS driver, but you see, he had to go through a special training course and obtain a commercial driver's license in order to be a UPS driver. And he was paid something during the training, during the orientation phase, and getting broke in and doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that as a secondary helper to the drivers when it was needed. Okay, so here's what happens next. By October 7th, 2009. Here's what happens between October 27, 2008, and October 27, 2009. 11 and 7/8 months time. About 1 month before the great big move, here's what had happened. Oscar establishes a good relationship with an executive talent scout with Warner Brother Pictures. He also established a good relationship with SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, and AFTRA stands for something else which I can't remember what that stands for. And he sells his house that he has owned since probably since about 1998 or early 1999. And he also sells a Winnebago. Yep. And he also sells a car that he's only owned for 4 years. What the car was I think it would be a RAV4 Toyota. Yeah. And he also sells some furniture that's in his house. And he racks up mucho bucks. We are talking at least $14,000. Yep. I mean, because the property values of the house went up so much because Goodland was becoming more and more desirable, and because he bought the house so cheap in 1998. And what he does is, about 2 weeks prior to October 7th, and he signed a legal agreement with Warner Brothers, and another separate legal agreement with SAG-AFTRA. That after October 11th, 2009, he was going to have some special orientation with Warner Brothers first for like a couple of days, and then after those 2 days he was going to have some special orientation with SAG-AFTRA, and then after that he was going to start going to an acting class that would be about 2 to 3 blocks away from Warner Brothers. And the place he would be living at, I can't say the exact address, but I can tell you this much. It's near Franklin Avenue, and it's also near Bronson, and it's on a street called Tamarind. It's on the 1800 block of Tamarind, near where Tamarind ends and Yucca begins. Yeah. And the day that he flies from the airport that would be nearest to Goodland, and flies into LAX, and he kept the phone off. It was an old it was a fairly old Motorola phone, flip phone, not a smartphone. And when he turns it on, it don't turn on. It's dead. So he goes to a cell phone dealer who has a kiosk that is specifically trying to liquidate different brands of smartphones. The best one he can get is a LG, I think it's something like CU 235 or something like that, because I used to have one. And the dealer gets him set up with, I believe it would be either T-Mobile or Sprint. Probably T-Mobile. And he ports the number from the dealer from the rinky-dink cell phone company that mostly dealt with Kansas, and he gets it all set up with that. And then what happens is he doesn't have a car, so he establishes a Uber and a Lyft account. Then what he does is, once he's got his 2 pieces of luggage in his possession, he gets a Uber ride from the airport. We're talking about a distance of roughly about at least 10 to 12 miles. Because the distance between LAX and this part of Hollywood, California, in fact, it may be as much as 18 to 20 miles. It's far. So what he does is the first Uber driver is doing just fine after they've been driving about 8 miles, and they're getting off the freeway because it's so heavy traffic. And all of a sudden, when they zigzag through some streets, wham! The Uber driver gets T-boned in the trunk. Bad. And he gets out a crowbar and he pries open the trunk, and Oscar looks at his 2 bags, and then what he does is he gets a Lyft driver to get him from there to his end destination. And everything's going just fine until he is 1.17 miles away from his new home on the 1800 block of Tamarind. The car goes and the radiator starts going and puts out a whole bunch of smoke. And he goes, and he can't start it. He can't. And he says, "Look, I gotta go." He says, and the guy speaks in a thick accent. He's probably Hispanic. He says, "Ooh," he says, "I can do with another ride. I can." He says, No. I can't. I don't want to depend on Uber and Lyft after what I've been through. He says, I'm gonna have to walk down there, and I gotta call the manager named Ernie. And he calls Ernie, and Ernie answers on like the third ring. He says, Ernie says, where the hell are you? He says, we're going to be closing in about a half hour. Where the hell are you? And he tells him. And he says, wait a second. And Ernie says, wait a second. He says, okay. He says, keep going, keep walking, and I'll call you back in about a minute. He calls a guy who works for the property, who's a maintenance man, who's got a big service truck. And a minute later, actually it's more like 1.21 minutes, 1 minute and 21 seconds later, the phone rings. He knows who it is. He says, okay, Ernie, what's up? He says, where exactly are you now? And he is, I kid you not, 0.89 miles away from Tamarind. And there's a lot of traffic coming all of a sudden. A lot of people, with playing that really loud rap music on their cars. And people driving by on old cars where it's an old V8 and there's a stuff. And he says, okay. He says, my man Big Danny is going to be showing up in about 3-4 minutes. He says, stay right where you are. And I told, he says, what are the colors of your suitcases? And Oscar tells him. He says, okay, I'll tell him to keep his eyes peeled for that, and just stay exactly where you are, because I don't want you two losing each other. He says, you'll hear from him. He'll be there in about 2 to 3 minutes. 4 minutes 9 seconds later, he hears this great big fairly modern looking service truck coming, and he hears honk honk, and what's in there is a guy who's African American, and he's got a neat bandana around his head, and he's got on a construction worker's helmet. And this guy is at least 6'8", and he's got big hulking arms and big clubby hands. But he's really nice. And he picks up the luggage, he puts it on the pickup bed, and he straps them down so they don't go rattling around. And they talk for a little bit, and he's really nice. And they get there in about 5 minutes roughly. In fact, probably sooner than that, more like 2 minutes. And then he undoes everything, and he gets on Big Danny gets on the smartphone and tells Ernie, and Ernie comes running out. And he says, okay. He says, okay, follow me. And then what happens is he points a few things out of what's going on outside, because at this time of night of the day, it's starting to get a little bit dark. It's a time that they call twilight, or terror twilight. And then Oscar follows Ernie into the leasing office, and he has him sign, initial and sign like 4 pages worth of documents. And he gets a resident manual, or a guest manual, or residential tenant manual. It's about this thick. and he gets two keys, two regular house keys, and two mailbox keys. And one is the entrance into the front door, and another key to the laundry room. And then what he does is Ernie, has him follow him to the store, or to his apartment. It's up on the second floor. It's like I think it would be unit 215, 216, something like that. It's a studio that's about about 270, 280 square feet. Yeah. And then he checks everything out, and then before they shake hands and part ways, he says, "Oh, I almost forgot." He says, "Look at," Ernie says this to Oscar. He says, "Oscar, look in the fridge. There is a 6-pack of mini cans of Pepsi and a 6-pack of 7-Up, mini cans." Actually, it wouldn't be 7-Up, it'd be Sprite. And then he says, "Okay." He says, I'm sure you know how to operate the stove. And he says, if you can't cook anything, he says, what I suggest you do is go down here to 209 and just quietly knock on and just gently knock on the door. And an elderly lady might let you borrow one of her pots and pans, or she might give them to you because she keeps telling me she's thinking seriously about selling. Right, great, cool, wonderful. So, here's what happens next. In one of the suitcases, he's not only got a lot of clothes and socks and undies and a roll of toilet paper. Yeah, he was smart, because he's like, I better put one of those in there, because I'm really worried there's going to be none, and I don't want to have to run this store if I really got a what. And and there's also like at least 10 hangers in there. These narrow, heavy aluminum ones instead of the ones that are fairly thick. Ones that just... It would be hangers that would look like this, instead of, oh goodness, instead of like this. And he hangs up some clothes and a jacket. Not a suit jacket, just a windbreaker jacket. And in the other one, he's got some more, it would be ones that'll be a little bit thinner than these. Clothes hangers. And he hangs up a heavy winter coat. And he hangs up a few other things. And then, man, all of a sudden, he's really hungry. And he starts doing a Google search through the smartphone. And he thought, that may be a little too much for me to go to the grocery store. Actually, let me correct that. It may be a little too much for me to establish a Instacart account or the other one. So why don't I just do a Google search for the one that's near? I think think it would be about 2.5 blocks either that way or that way. It's either that way, or that way. It's called Gelson. Gelson. If you don't believe me, look it up. Google will pull it up for you. And he gets out a little, hold on. He gets out these Post-it notes. And he writes down a few things he needs. He goes into Gelson's, and when he goes in, everything's great. When he goes in there and shops around, other than the fact that a man and a woman try to, and they do it in a way that's quite diplomatic, try to calm down a kid who's really throwing a temper tantrum. But they calm him down. It's just a little noisy in there while he's in there for about 15 minutes roughly. Then he goes to the register, and the cashier is really efficient. He gets him established with a customer rewards card. And then as he's taking out, one bag of groceries is in a reusable grocery bag with the Gelson's logo on it, or California logo. And the other one is a plastic paper sack, where you can carry it like this instead of, And when he comes outside, there's this guy. I mean, I know it's cold in LA at this time, but he's got on a hat, winter hat. And he's got on some jersey gloves where there's holes in a couple of fingers, and he's got on this heavy coat with the I think it's called the faux fur thing on it. And he's standing there, and he's like sweating, and his pupils are dilated, and there's all this kind of like whitish stuff around this part of his lips. He says, "Hey," he goes, and Oscar says, "What?" He says, is there any way you can spare me at least a couple of bucks? He says, "No." He says, "What do you mean no? I can tell by the way you dress you're making good money. Come on, man, I haven't had a job in over 2 months, man." He said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm wiped out. All these groceries took what little money I had left. I can't help you. Please don't ask me anymore, okay?" "What am I supposed to do?" He says, "You see that man right there? He's the assistant manager. What I would suggest you do is you talk to him real nice. There is a possibility he'd help you." And the guy just goes, and he walks in there and talks to the manager. So then what happens is he gets home, and he puts all his groceries away. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he hears this. Oscar goes to the brass knocker sound because he knows it's the front door. And there's this elderly lady who is, she can stand up pretty good, but she's got a lot of wrinkles, and she's got really clean teeth, even though some teeth look a little crooked. And she says, "Hi, are you the man that came here from Kansas?" He says, "Yeah. Who are you?" And her name is Doris. And she makes it clear that she's the one that lives in apartment 209. And she says, "Oh, before I talk with you a little bit more," he says, let me reach down and get something for you that I want to give to you." And she pulls out this box that has one cast iron 10-inch skillet, one old school, it's got a copper thing on the bottom, and it's like this polished stainless steel. It looks like it's at least 40 years old. A pot, a boiling pot, and one 6-inch, well-made. I mean, it looked like it cost at least $35. Well-made skillet that has that really high-quality lining on it. I think it would either be Farber or Tefal. And she wanted to give those to her. And the other thing she does is she takes out 4 3x5 cards of recipes. And she says, "You're a really nice man." She says, "I love LA, but I tell you, there's days that it's so hectic outside. I just stay inside and just mind my own business, And she says, "Why don't I?" She says, "On the back of one of those recipes, there's my phone number. You can give me a call sometime. I'd really like to chat with you some more. I'd like to stand here and talk with you, but it's getting close to my bedtime, and I got to take my medications. You know how us old people are." And he says, "Yes, I do." And he pats her on the shoulder, and then he goes, and then she goes away. And the other thing that happens is he doesn't have a TV, and he doesn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, one minute he's feeling like really, really hungry. So what he does is he goes into the kitchen, and he was smart enough to get some a small container. It's about about that big approximately, of off-brand. It was like $1.99 or something like that, or $2.25. $2.29 probably, or actually probably about $2.79. I mean, this is LA, California. Yeah, I mean, it would cost something like that there, and nobody would think too much of it, even though they wouldn't want to pay it if they were under a tight budget. And he puts a little bit of that, and he cleans out that 6 to 8 inch skillet, and he bought some eggs because he was going to make breakfast the next day. He thought, "Oh, the hell with it, I'll just make a couple over easy eggs." And he gets out the big cast iron pot skillet, and he puts out 3 3 slices of bacon. Yep. And he cooks that. And then he's thinking, oh, crap. I didn't buy no damn plates. What am I going to do? And he thinks and he thinks and he thinks and he thinks and he thinks. Here's what he does. It is a little a little bit screwy, but he does it. He takes out the 10-inch skillet. He cleans it out. He turns it upside down so it's a nice flat thing, and he can get his stuff easily. He takes out some disposable fork and knife, and he just goes to eat that. And when after he's had 3 bites of that, he takes a sliced bacon and he takes a sip or 2 of the Pepsi. And then what he does is he hold on. Okay, and then what he does is he does the dishes, and he goes into one of his suitcases, and he gets out some prescription allergy medication, and he also gets some hypertension medication that would be lisinopril 20 milligrams, or no, actually Zestro. Duh. Sorry. And he starts kind of feeling hungry again. What he did was he got a little thing of Doritos, about this big. He chops away at the Doritos. And he opens up his laptop, because that was on a thing that was in one of those computer cases that was wrapped around this way. And he looks up a few things on YouTube. One was an episode of Knight Rider, and another one was I think it would be KLA TV or KLA 5, something like that. He watches a repeat of the news, and then he this is something to be available through YouTube because he has no TV yet. And he also he looks at some TV commercials that aired on TV in July of 1983. It would be something that a YouTube channel put together with their expertise. And then he really starts yawning. And he's got no bed. So what he does is there's one item that is in his it's rolled up, really tight. It's rolled up and folded, actually it's more like folded up really tight. He inflates by going blowing in the air himself. He inflates a raft, you know, like a swimming raft, one that's fairly big. And he uses a bathroom towel as a blanket. And he just lays there until he goes. I mean, he doesn't have sleep apnea, but at some points he just goes. And he sleeps away. He wakes up at 3 a.m. and he's at 3:30 a.m. and it's raining hard. And he doesn't fear that he's going to get struck, but he's a little bit concerned. He looks at his smartphone. The smartphone's dead. So he goes to the packaging that is inside the same case where the laptop computer was, and he finds the USB cable and the wall socket. And he puts everything together and he charges the phone. And he has to do that. And after he pours himself a glass of water through the fold up bathroom cup that's in his shaving kit thing, or shaving kit thing. He pours himself a little bit of a drink of water, and he goes back to sleep. It wasn't easy. It took about 20 minutes to a half hour to get back to sleep, but he gets back to sleep. And he sleeps like a log. When he wakes up, he thinks it's because he didn't reset his wristwatch. He looks at the wristwatch. He thinks it's 10:30 a.m. when what it really is 9:31 a.m. because by the time he turns it back, it's 9:31. Yep. And he turns on his smartphone, makes sure everything's on the up and up. And there is a voicemail message from the moving company. They tell him that he is going to that they are going to be at his apartment complex at such and such time, and to have the phone on and to be there. What that time is approximately 2:15 Pacific Standard Time. So he thought, well, I better get to it. Chop, chop. He gets in the shower, gets showered and shaved and brushes his teeth and puts on deodorant. He gets dressed. He sprays a little bit of cologne that he got as a gift from Warner Brothers. It kind of smells like Aramis, even though they don't really make Aramis anymore. You guys know what I'm talking about. So he goes into the kitchen, and he's got at least 9 to 10 eggs left. he makes over easy eggs, bacon, and he toasts a couple slices of bread, and he get out some, I think it would either be Bluebonnet or Imperial margarine, and he applies that to the bread. And he's just thinking, dang, why can't I make coffee? And he's thinking to himself, it's going to be all right. It ain't going to be like this forever. The coffee maker is in the box. So, it's just for today only. He goes into the the refrigerator again. He pops off a Coca-Cola. He drinks it. And he does what he did the night before. He cleans out the inside of the skillet, and then he turns it upside down, and this time he places it on his lap instead of doing it by the kitchen sink like he did before. And he eats the over easy eggs and the bacon. And he's really careful how he eats it because he doesn't want the eggs to go onto the floor. And he gets another knock on the door from Doris, the neighbor. And she gives to him, these are like light blue in color, some disposable, I think they're about 8-inch dinner plates. Yep. And that really makes him feel good. And he's so happy. He doesn't do it, but he sure wants to give her a hug because she's so darn nice. And they exchange, he gives her his phone number, and he makes it clear, he says, you know this, I may not be able to keep this forever. The studio may want me to change my number, but here's what it is for now. This is a number I've had for over 9 years. And after the breakfast, he foots it over to the to Gelson, and he gets a couple of for cooking, those cooking spoons, and he starts pricing the coffee makers they have, and he starts looking at what coffee blends they do have. And he sniffs a few of them, and he doesn't, they don't really raise hell. But a manager comes over to him and says, sir, he says, did you just move here? He says, yeah. How do you know? He says, I can tell by your accent. He said, please do not sniff stuff like that. He says, it's against the health code violation of California state law. Please don't do that. And he says, okay, I'll make sure not to do that anymore. And then he says, if I want to know the scent of something, do you have samples of it? And he says, yes, we do. He says, come talk to me, or come talk to a cashier, and they will, and we have some special sealed devices that we can only that we keep in the back office, and we'll let you sample them. We'll let you smell them. Okay, thank you very much. and he buys a couple of kitchen towels, and he buys a coffee mug that shows the Hollywood, the Hollywood mountain, the Hollywood hill itself. It's also known as Hollywood Hills, with the original Hollywood logo. You guys know what I mean. And he buys a issue of People magazine. Now, what they were discussing in October of 2009, I don't remember. But, he likes some of the articles that are in there, and he buys that too. He goes back to his apartment, and then what he does is he gets some work gloves out, some industrial type. I want to call them flexa gloves or flexible gloves. And he gets out some hand tools that are in one of the suitcases, because he knows any minute now they're going to show up. And he gets a ring on. He gets the phone rings, and he could tell by what the caller ID part says who it is. And it's the moving company. So what happens is the moving company parks where they're supposed to park, and he goes out there and he meets with them, and he shows them how to get it, to go into that entrance instead of that one, or actually that entrance instead of that one. And they really start working away. And once all the moving is done, here's what he has in his favor that's going to really help him out. He has 6 large moving boxes that are huge. We're talking like over a foot tall. He has a hide-a-bed couch, which he's going to set up in the living room. And he has a I think it would either be 720p or 1200 something p HD TV. This is pre-smart TV stuff. And his coffee maker there. What his coffee maker is, and what I'm about to mention, it isn't a commercial grade. It's a home grade. It's Bunn, B-U-N-N. And he has the coffee filter, and it's one of those ones, instead of shaped about like this, it's shaped almost like this. It's got kind of a V shape. And a blend that is a medium roast English toffee flavor blend. And he's also got some Coffee Mate powdered coffee cream, and he's got some little sugar cubes that are CH sugar, or CH confectionery. And he's also got some unopened Tabasco sauce, and he's also got some, it's one of those little coasters shaped about like this. This thing is old. We're talking 30 to 40 years old. Sambo. Because this is before Sambo went totally broke. And there was one open in Santa Barbara, California. And when the George Floyd racial tension incident was going around, and there was a lot of problems happening in the United States, the company that had the rights to Sambo's changed it to, I think it's Chad's or Chad something diner or restaurant. Because it's the one Sambo that was left that's in Santa Barbara, gone, shut down. Okay, so back to him unpacking. He also has some butter knives, spoons, forks, little paring knives, utility knives, fisherman's knives that would be with a 4 to 5 blade kitchen cutlery set, whisk whips, yolk separator. In fact, I got one of those. I'll show you what these look. Okay. I tried really hard to search for the egg yolk separator, but when I moved from West Virginia back to here, I forgot about it. But look at this item. I bought this at a Vitamin Cottage natural grocer store. It's called a Sprock. It's a fork and a spoon combined together as one, which is Sprock. And here's a basting brush. I got 2 of those. This is the one I use. And I think this would be called a pastry something. See? I got that at a pretty reasonable price. Because I had a feeling that sooner or later I was going to need it. It's to even out things after you're making a cake, and so things, so that the icing doesn't look all sloppy. And he also has some wall decor. He puts up some photographs that he likes. And he has some other clothes in there. And he also has some dictionaries, some other books he likes, some DVDs, a DVD player, and the one thing he needs to do, though, and there's a store that would be probably within 1.8 miles to, at the most, 3.4 miles away. An electronics store that would have a antenna, so that he can buy one of those and he puts it up on the wall, and it goes through the programming phases, and it picks up the channels that the HD TV antenna would pick up. And he does a lot of unpacking. He does as much as he can. I mean, he does a lot of thunk, 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 thunk on the wall, putting up things on the wall to make his apartment look like an apartment instead of looking too much like. This was said by a guy who didn't have much inside his house. Minimalism, schminimalism. No, he don't want any of that. He wants to look like a normal apartment. Nothing spectacular, just average. The typical traditional apartment. and he learns how to get get activated with Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats. No, wait a minute, I take that back. They may not have had Uber Eats back then, but I think they did have Uber and Lyft, or at least Uber. So, well, this has been quite a long one. So at this point, I think I better end the vlog. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone. I hope you enjoyed this YouTube vlog. And thank you, everyone. And goodbye. And I hope if you go to Hollywood for a vacation, you stay at the right hotels and make sure to stay out of the ones where there's often trouble. Goodbye now, and good luck.